All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final builds refresh. Today, we are talking about Zephyr, and we are going to be talking about multiple builds for Zephyr. Zephyr has gone through 2 rounds of changes, and we have talked about them before, but of note, I went through the free-to-play through, and I found that Zephyr, I think, is the most advantageous frame for people who are just getting out of the early game of Warframe. If you started Warframe and you picked your starter and you did your early game stuff and you built Rhino and then you were looking for what you should do next, Zephyr, far and away in her current state, is my pick because she is so cheap to get going and she can take you all the way to the steel path extremely easily. So we are going to be showing the new player build for her, which is very easy to acquire, and we're going to be showing the overkill that you've come to expect. So with that, we are of course going to look at the new player build first, and the new player build, super easy to put together. This is a zero forma build. It is zero forma on regular Zephyr and Zephyr Prime, so either way, you're not going to need to invest any forma in her in order to get this build running. And this, I did steel path with this on the free-to-play through, and it was super easy. It was not problematic at all. I used a combination of Zephyr and Nezha for everything I did on the steel path, and they worked flawlessly. And notably, both of them come from the clan, and they are both super easy to build in terms of both the mods that they want and need, and also just in terms of material cost. They are so accessible. With that, the stuff here that is very cuttable, that is like kind of the thing that you might not have, Augur Reach. Augur Reach can be a little difficult to get to drop, and if you drop this, it's going to be worse, sure, but also it's not going to be so much worse that it's not going to be the exact same build and run the exact same way. You may just notice that every once in a while, somebody's a little further away than you'd like, and having this in the build is going to remove that problem, allowing for your 2 to pretty much encompass most tile sets that you're going to want to be setting up on as Zephyr. With that, other things that are hard to get, quote unquote, we have overextended and fleeting expertise. The answer really is just farm for them. You just have to do it until you get them, or until you can trade for them. Fleeting expertise and overextended are just staple mods that are going to be on the vast majority of Warframes, and you're going to have to get them at some point. Other than that, we got a bunch of really easy to get stuff. We got Continuity, which is super basic mod, Streamline, super basic mod, and Stretch, super basic mod. If you are at the point where you're starting to like get into like say like Uranus or wherever and you don't have these, my advice to you is to ask someone if you can have them, because they are worth nothing, as we have just, tons and tons of stock of them, and experienced players are very likely to be like, yeah, sure, I have a bajillion of these here. That's going to be very normal, and it should not be hard to acquire any of those mods. They're certainly not difficult to level up, as nothing in this build goes above rank 5. Also, we have Augur Message. This is just a common, super easy to come by, not a big deal at all. And I will say, you do kind of need it for this build. This build does go a little light on duration, but this can be replaced with anything else you can use for duration, although that will be at, of course, a greater expense, like with Constitution. We're also throwing Cunning Drift here. Cunning Drift is just more ability range, which is very useful for you. Not hard to get. Doing like the drift rooms is not a big deal. And yeah, like pretty easy stuff. This doesn't require the Exilus or anything like that. Just the base stuff on Zephyr, and you're gonna be good to go. She doesn't require any subsumes to do her thing. She doesn't need subsumes for survivability. And in fact, you only really need subsumes for kind of just hilarious overkill at the cost of some mobility, which is what the full all-in build is, which is Tornado Breach. So you'll notice this is eerily similar to what I just showed. That's because not a lot changes for Zephyr Prime, or for just Zephyr on the full build, really. Other than, of course, Primed Continuity comes into the equation because we were using regular, and Primed is just the better version. Also, we get our Exilus slot, allowing Cunning Drift to move up, and we are using this extra slot for Intensify to do hilarious things with Breach Surge. Basically, Breach Surge allows us to have a big AoE blind that also can help us do additional damage, and it is not necessary in any way, shape, or form, but it is funny to watch the numbers and just have a hilarious time. This is arguably literally a downgrade for Zephyr to replace her 1, depending on how much you feel like you need the mobility, as it is going to be useful in a variety of places. But I think it's funny. And that is honestly the big reason that I use it on Zephyr, because she doesn't really need anything. You could theoretically build her for a number of different things, utilizing her arcanes to maybe go for Molt Augmented or something that needs strength. But it's all just not necessary because Zephyr's game plan already works, and she already has a bunch of great things going for her. So you can kind of just do whatever you want with both her Subsume and also this last slot. In this case, it's just to get the damage multiplier above 1, and that's great. I don't really need it to be even higher than this, and I, like I said, am mostly using it as a goof more so than anything else. So yeah, it's a great build. It's a great time. It's very fun. It's super enjoyable. Breach Search is hilarious, and we are combining it with the Tenet Archiplasmor. If you are a new player looking for the weapon that synergizes, it is the Fulmin. Obviously, this is 6 Forma, and that's really scary. Here's the 1 Forma build. If you are a new player, build this. The Fulmin is both not hard to build, and this build is not hard to put together at all. All of these mods are very easy to get. I believe in you. You can do it, or ask someone to help you. You can join the Discord. It's in the description down below. Do not build the full 6 Forma build on the Fulmin. And the reason that we don't build the full 6 Forma build on the Fulmin is because the Tenet Archiplasmor is just the big boy pants-on version of the Fulmin that you can upgrade into if you hunt down a Sister of Parvos. And that build looks like this. Obviously, I've got a wrong polarity on here, but it doesn't matter because this weapon is rank 40 because I put all the Forma in it. We are using Primed Point Blank over here instead of Galvanized Savvy. That is what this Forma was. The reason I'm using Primed Point Blank is because things don't live through this anyway, so I'd prefer not to have to build up Savvy or build up Merciless in order for things to start dying, because the first shot kills them anyway. You can, of course, if you want a higher top end for whatever reason, you can use Galvanized Savvy, but it's not going to come into the equation. It's not going to matter. You'll be just fine. Obviously, high-end build, you can just go like the cheap version of all of the mods you see here. Like, just take out Galvanized Acceleration, use regular Hell, just go down to regular Point Blank, and you'll be super fine. Very, very cheap build to put in. Like, this is a 7-cost mod. This is 5. This is 7. Like, it's very, very low-end. Primed Ravage, I will say, does help a lot. It's why it's on one of my top lists for a thing that you should be getting from Borrow. But it's also not necessary. You could use regular Ravage, and you're going to more than get away with it, that's for sure, especially if you're combining it with Zephyr. Otherwise, the stuff doesn't matter. Glaive Prime's obviously good on Acolytes and such like that. But yeah, that's pretty much what's up. Things are not hard for Zephyr. I do want to go over how to actually play her, as she has a few things going. First and foremost, her 2. Her 2 is a vortex now that brings in enemies. You're going to use this alongside your 4 in order to get enemies clumped into your 4 and then kill them all by shooting the Archiplasmor through it. Your 4 has 2 modes. You can tap it, and then the tornadoes just go out wherever, and it's very, very annoying. So what you should instead do is hold it, and this puts your tornadoes somewhere. And then once your tornadoes are just put somewhere, you will use your 2 to bring enemies to the edge and have them be, taken into the vortex. And then with a weapon like the Archiplasmor, you're going to shoot through multiple of your tornadoes. And every time you hit your tornadoes with this infinite enemy punch through weapon, that damage is going to go into every single enemy that is caught in the tornadoes as a whole. The more tornadoes that you hit, the more times that damage is going to be applied, and it's going to hit everyone in the tornadoes. You will also get the hit for it going through them, so if they are like floating up in it and you shoot through them and the tornadoes all together, it will hit 3 or 4 times, and that makes quick work of pretty much anything that can get caught in the tornado. It's also worth noting, enemies do not have to be ragdolled in the tornado for this to work, so this does work on Acolytes. It is very, very powerful. Then, in addition to that, we're using our 3. Our 3 very simply says, basically, we can't get shot. Like, TLDR, we cannot be shot by bullets. Bullets instead do not hit us. That's what the wind swirling around us does. You are still vulnerable to AoEs and also melee attacks, but melee attacks shouldn't be a problem because you are, of course, a bird after all, so just don't be on the ground, and melee attacks are not going to be a problem. Other than that, the explosions thing, usually not a factor. Rockets and stuff are going to be redirected away from you, and we have very high range, so it's usually not going to be a large enough thing to do. And whenever you're talking about like Xmas fire and stuff like that, just roll into that, and you're going to be more than fine. Also, those Xmas are likely not going to survive you using the Archiplasmor anyway. With that, let's throw these enemies in and just watch them be super ineffectual at killing Zephyr, which is pretty much the thing. There it is. So yeah, that's pretty much the strategy right there. Is my 3 makes it so I don't die, my 4 ragdolls and groups up enemies, and my 2 ragdolls and groups up enemies for the purposes of putting them into my 4, and then I shoot into my 4, and it kills them all, as long as I'm using a weapon that synergizes with it. Also, any AoE weapon is going to synergize very well with the tornadoes also. So if you're utilizing any explosives like the Brahma or the Nadaruk or so on and so forth, those are all great with Zephyr's tornadoes. Tons of weapons are applicable. Personally, I think the Archiplasmor is a very good top-end choice, in addition to, of course, the earlier, lesser version of the Archiplasmor, which is the Fulmin. But yeah, Zephyr's amazing. I think she's extremely, extremely underrated right now. Probably, I would say, it's the most underrated frame in the entire game as it currently stands. And she is putting out the back of the alphabet here as we wrap up the builds refresh. I very much hope that you guys have enjoyed it. I do have some exciting things coming up, but also enjoy the Steel Path run, and I will see you tomorrow. You're not wrong. The bird is indeed the word. All right. Switching songs. Okay. All right, time for the most underrated frame in the entire game. Sub 1% played at all MRs.
Scans show Grenier
and by far the best second Warframe for any new player to build.
Predictable. As expected, Grenier have shut down the environmental systems, sending modified life support capsules. Use these to sustain your environment or attach Kuba catalysts to begin harvesting.
Zephyr stay alive move again? It's Turbulence.
Life support incoming.
It makes it so bullets don't hit you, which it turns out is a pretty good defensive maneuver.
I've delivered a life support capsule to the area. Activating it will buy you more time.
My favorite part of this is that there is like the free-to-play through build for this frame that is literally just doing this exact same thing with like slightly lower numbers in this exact same mission. And it's like an MR7 build with like super budget mods. It's one Forma. For anyone who missed the free-to-play through, I'd probably suggest it.
capsule.
Plus Zephyr is baby's first problem solver. Oh, yeah. Baby's first war crime. They blow up so fast.
Additional life support has arrived.
Yeah, Breach Surge is mostly here for comedy. But it's nice whenever the Acolyte shows up, because then they just get Breach Surge to death. That's always a good one. Or I just shoot them. It's really both. You also can just, like, totally keep Zephyr's base kit and, like, just utilize her 1 for the additional movement, and that's, like, great. Like, you really don't need a helmet at all. It's mostly just for funny number. Also, the Xmas change, like, didn't affect Zephyr, like, almost at all. Like, the difference is you might have to directly shoot at an Xmas at some point in your life. And that's a maybe. Good set of shenanigans. I was trying to replicate this the other day. It's pretty good. How dare you be a Kuva Guardian in my airspace? Oh, let me zoom up all the enemies. Breach Surge. Enjoy, you filthy animal.
To a successful start. Extraction is available if you need
it. You'll able to see all the numbers just drop to the ground. Shenanigans, outright shenanigans. It's good. The high quality shenanigans. It really did 2 to 3 small quote-unquote changes to Zephyr, and it made her so much better. Yep. She didn't need much. A lot of Warframes don't. Like, changes that were similar to what Zephyr got could be done to a lot of the game's roster, and they would be similarly good. When did Zephyr become so useful? They changed her a little bit. A Warframe with survivability got control of the way their damage is output. Zephyr was always a frame whose tornadoes had good mechanics, but it was totally uncontrollable. And now she's in total control. Kind of just returning, so Zephyr being really good is new to me. Oh, yeah. No, don't worry. You're not alone. Even if you have been playing, it's new to most people. Most people absolutely completely glossed over this and continue to gloss over it to this day. The first room I started playing back in 2013. Well, welcome to fucking 2022, Zephyr. She's a fucking monster and nobody knows it. Like, honestly, with as strong as Zephyr is now and as accessible as her build is, like she runs on a fucking half-eaten donut worth of like mods and shit. So like if she's not at least like 3% played, then people still aren't like aware enough of her. Put the thing on me. Thank you. I'll leave that there. Ooh. I'll leave that there, I said. Here we go. He's dead now. We're almost at 10. Zephyr's great. For some of the best prisms and scaffolds against Void Angels, scaffolds basically don't matter. The best prism is the 7. Alright, let's get out of here.
We will all share in this bounty. Hold out as long as you can.
So here's where having her regular one would be somewhat helpful. In that you would be able to... Ooh, what's wrong way? You'd be able to just fly through some of these tiles with her one. If that matters to you. Then you would lose out on the meme of Breach Surge. But you wouldn't have, like, to do operator stuff here. To go faster. Probably can go out of bounds there if you tried a little harder. Alright. Yep. Zephyr's incredible and people will continue to ignore her. Anyway, at least if people continue to ignore Zephyr, I can continue to use her in free-to-play throughs to make my life really easy. Oh yeah, her augmented one is a very high quality meme. That's true. That is a true fact.